Unmask the pain, reclaim your power. This is Life's Disease podcast, where we break generational cycles, expose hidden truths, and step boldly into healing and freedom. I'm your host, Jen Simpson. I hope that you guys are having an amazing day, morning, afternoon, night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining the platform. Thank you for tuning in with me, and I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. Survivor, author, coach, and your guide through the raw conversations that shifts lives. Today, family, we are diving into a story of resilience, heartbreak, and ultimate transformation. We have a special guest today. I want you to get excited to lean in to this episode. This episode will have you on your edge of your seat. This episode is going to be transformational. This episode is going to be educational. So please grab your favorite drink, snack, whatever you like, and join us with me today. My special guest is a powerhouse herself, Navi Bliss.
The key to successful relationships is allowing. And what do I mean by allowing, right? A lot of people will refer to this in romantic relationships, and feminine energy is leaning back, and absolutely. But it's not only for romantic relationships. All successful relationships are about allowing, which means having a relaxed grip on that relationship and allowing the other person space and time to show up for you.
She is known for her powerhouse, cultivating, and confidence.
So this doesn't mean that you can't want all of the things that you want and that you don't get to have all of the things that you want, because you do, right? But when we have this death grip on things, we have this death grip on things because we believe ultimately that we are not worthy. So that's where I have to fight so hard for this. I have to try so hard for this. I have to do it in this way. I have to make it work.
Navi is a certified love and relationship coach, certified inspirational speaker, and host of Blissful Love podcasts. She's been featured on Global News, CTV, Breakfast Television, a Pulse Media, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and she's also a contributing author in 2 #1 best-selling books. With her first solo book, Broken to Blissful, dropping in mid-2025. Guys, I'm excited to sit with Navi because she's not only a powerhouse woman, she's a transformational speaker. But behind the spotlight, Navi's journey began in the shadows. Growing up in an abusive home, surviving toxic relationships, and finally breaking free in 2016 to write her story. Today, she's helping people fall head over heels in love, not with somebody, but with themselves, so they can call in the love and life of their dreams. So help me wish Navi a welcome. Hi, Navi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful. You are looking absolutely gorgeous. I love the makeup. You look phenomenal.
As are you, and I'm so happy to be here.
I swear, when I see makeup done, I'm like, I wish I could sit in the mirror and do all of that. I can't. I have 2 left hands when it comes to makeup.
Well,
So,
it's a skill like anything else. So there was when I was like a teenager, okay, I did the 90s makeup, right? So I wore like only foundation, like,
yeah.
with no blush, nothing like nothing else. And it was a powder foundation too. And when you're a teenager and your skin is like oily and glowy and that works, right? If I did that now, I would look like a cadaver. But
I look
also
back
at a
and I'm
certain
like, we used to take the eyebrow pencil and like do a line and we thought we're the baddest, okay?
yeah.
We thought we're the baddest. I would use like a little bit of eyeshadow, maybe some concealer. I'm like, I look good. No, girl, you did not look good.
Well, I'm a
And
sure
I'm
you did, but the thing is, it was also like that time, right? Like, when you're a teenager and your skin is perfect and like you have everything else, like you don't have to do that much. But at a certain point, I decided, okay, like I want to master this, and I'm actually like legally blind in one eye. And so, like, I always used to use that as my excuse for not being able to do eye makeup. And then I was
yeah.
like, no, I can figure this out. Just like anything else, I can figure it out. So I started just doing it every single day. Like, and it wasn't good every single day until I got good at it every single day. And I used to tell myself, oh, I can't do the wingtip eyeliner because I'm blind in one eye. And no, now I do it just fine, actually,
Yeah.
because I decided that I was going to put in the time, right? And this is where I think that we can make up a story about ourselves like, I'm not good at this, I can't do this. And it's like, you can do anything that you want to do. And what differentiates you between someone who's an expert at doing it is just the amount of time that they have spent doing it.
Well, I'm actually glad that you dropped that gem right there. And I want you to repeat it specifically, not just to our audience, but back to me, please, because I need to hear that.
Yeah, so there you can do anything that you want to do. And if you're telling yourself a story that you can't do something, that's all it is. It's just a story that you keep telling yourself again and again, and you're putting in the time and energy to tell that story as opposed to try doing that thing. Like I always tell people what my superpower in life is that I'm not afraid to suck at things. And because I'm not afraid to suck at things, I give myself the opportunity to start to excel at things because no one starts at expert level, right? So whatever you want to do, the only thing that's differentiating you and that person who is an expert is just the amount of times that they've done it, the amount of time that they've invested in it, right? Even I don't know if you've ever read the book Freakonomics.
No, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so in it there's one of the things that it talks about is certain athletes and like how much time actually and effort that you put into things like plays a part in who becomes a professional and who doesn't. It can be the difference of when someone's birthday is because that affects, like, let's just say for a hockey player, how much ice time that they would get based on when they were born for the year that they would be playing in, which like that would differentiate, create such a difference in skill level over the years that it could differentiate you between being like a mediocre player and being an expert player, right? So it's not that they were born experts, it's just that the time was put in to become experts.
That is, you know, we don't really realize that everything sometimes is absolutely timely. And I like to believe, and I believe it, and I strongly believe it. I don't know about anybody else, but I believe that God allows things to happen on purpose. And it's funny that you said that because for the last week, I'm like, I had this event coming up. I'm always trying to hide away from in person events and saying that I can't do this. I can't do it in person. But that's my subconscious mind, something in me that's there that's telling me that I can't, that I need to weed out of me and figure out where it came from, right? So we don't really realize that there's something.
Yes, you can put in the work to weed it out, but this is the one thing that I have learned through all of this like healing work, that you can do subconscious reprogramming, and there's like a time and place for subconscious reprogram, but you can also just make a decision. So how you become the person that does something is you just do it, right? So like you're the person that doesn't do in-person events until you do an in-person event, right? You're the person who doesn't speak on stage until you speak on stage one time. You do that one time, and all of a sudden, now you're the person that speaks on stages because you've done it. So you just have to do it once, and you can do it terribly, you can do it uncomfortably, but once you do it, you become the person that has done it, right? You're the person that doesn't travel until you travel, right? You're the person that's never been on
Right.
a plane until you're the person that's been on a plane. You're the person that's never done a solo trip until you've done a solo trip.
Yeah. And that's another thing. I've never done a solo trip until I did it. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Just
Yeah.
like the podcast. I can't do it. I can do it. So
Yeah.
you're right. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you on that. Until you do it, then you'll know what you're capable of. And that is the ultimate truth. And I want to thank you for dropping that because I think all of us are struggling with that right now. And we're going to get into that part of being in a relationship for so long and then being alone. I can't be alone. I need somebody. And a lot of times when relationships end, you jump into the wrong one because you're not used to being alone. because you've been in a relationship for decades, right? But I want to first thank you so much for one, accepting your calling, stepping boldly into your purpose and doing it oh so flawlessly with a beautiful smile on your face. And I want to say thank you for standing in the gaps, not just for us women, but humans, men, women, people that are watching you and they're pulling from you. They're being inspired by you. Thank you for allowing that. Thank you for being that well, because sometimes we do need somebody that's the well that helps us get back up when we're down. And I wanted to ask you, what do you hope that your legacy will be when you leave this earth? And what do you represent?
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you for the reflection that you shared with me because that's so beautiful and I really appreciate it. And what I would hope that my legacy is that I'm the person that was able to help as many people as possible step into their value and their confidence and their power so that they could also accomplish all the things that they're meant to accomplish, right? If you think of scientifically like the odds of each human being born, like the specific gene combination you are, how many generations prior to you had to come together, but not just that, like those specific cells from those specific people and all of those things that they had to overcome for you to be born. It's not an accident. No one is an accident, right? And so
Mhm.
um therefore your life has meaning, and when we are not standing in our value and we are not standing in our worth and we're playing small, we're doing a disservice to the world because we all have magic in us. And I want to be known as a person that helped as many people as possible step into their value, their magic, and just known as someone who is an empowering person in other people's lives.
I love that. And it shows that you represent it, because I just started talking to you and I already feel like this warm, beautiful energy that you are. And it feels good being in your presence. You know, we talk about energy, and when you're around somebody, you automatically feel that energy. But I can feel it through the screen. The pureness, your heart, how big it is, and how passionate you are about what you do. It shows. I don't know if
Thank you.
anyone's ever
Thank
told you
you.
that before, but it
Thank you.
definitely
I mean, it's
shows.
something that like it warms my heart to see that reflection. But it's like, I also think that, you're so incredibly amazing for starting this podcast and doing all of the things that you're doing and showing up in your authenticity, right? But I also think that when like energy will attract like energy
Yeah,
always.
that is true. And I'm more so excited, guys, because Navi is from where I'm from. We are from Toronto, Canada. And I'm excited because I don't really get Toronto guests. I had one Vancouver guest, if you guys remember, which is in Canada, but Toronto. We love Toronto. We love the city that we're in. We love the food. We love the multiculturalism. And here we are today, bridging the gaps again within the city that we're from. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about Toronto. And if you were born in Canada, what was it like for you being raised in Toronto?
Yeah, I was born in Canada in Brampton, actually, which is like a little it's not a little, it's a large suburb, let's say,
Yeah.
of Toronto. But now that in my adult life I've lived in Toronto proper, people who live in the city will not say that Brampton is Toronto. So I had to
They've
differentiate.
separated.
You had to differentiate that. But I think that being a person of color and being of Indian background, there's always this dichotomy. And I think because I'm also third generation Canadian, I'm further removed from my cultural background, which doesn't mean that I'm not proud of it or I don't care about it. It's just naturally these things are going to happen over generations, right? And I think that I've loved growing up in the Toronto area, but also like being a person who just also felt like I didn't fit in so many ways, right? Because I went to school with a lot of white people. They thought that, they would say, they would call me whitewashed and say things like that, right? But then people like who are from India would also not have me fit in with them and kind of be saying the same things about me, right? So you're like, how exactly do I fit into this?
So I definitely understand what you're talking about. I was talking to my brother the other day and we are talking about lunch. We used to bring back in the day, I'm an 89 baby. So bringing lunch to school, my mom would give me oxtail and rice and peas. Girl, I wasn't eating that. That went in the garbage. Mom, if you're listening, sorry, but it went in the garbage. So his wife said, "You guys were getting oxtail, rice, and peas and throwing it in the garbage? I would love to get that. I used to get sandwiches and throw it out. But back in the day, you used to get made fun of. Your food stinks. You smell bad. You bad BO, like people say things to you, right? Now you have this generation where my daughter's asking for the first day of school, can you make me jerk chicken? And I'm like, really? Yeah, nobody does that to them. They're able to bring their different cultural foods to school. And I think that the generation has changed where we're teaching them more to accept their culture, accept who they are. And when you talk about not being able to fit in, I think it's harder back then than it is now. Because everybody's more diverse and
It is in a way, but I also think that um because like I said, there's advantages to both, because
yeah.
like I don't want to like praise adversity, right? Because like I
Mhm.
don't like, if you can avoid adversity, then you're extremely fortunate. And it's not something that you need to chase after, because sometimes we'll create problems for ourselves because we also create a value for adversity. But I think Gen Z struggles with this a little bit because they've had so much acceptance that they struggle even more with the standing out part, right?
Yeah,
And being different, because yes, certain things are accepted, but because they're not used to being challenged, they still limit their expression in other ways, because in the ways that they believe that it'll be accepted by their peers, that's okay, but in other ways they're not used to being challenged. They don't know how to hold a challenge. They don't know how to deal with that, so they're afraid to put themselves out in that way.
yeah, we're definitely more resilient than them. They're not taught how to be able to handle conflict, struggles. They tend to crumble more or avoid certain conversations or limit themselves. I do agree with you on that for sure. How do we change it? It's these
Well, I think
conversations.
I think it is changing. Like, I mean, I'm guessing your kids are Gen Alpha, right? So do you think that there is like a change between Gen Z and Gen Alpha, that it's already happening, right? But I think that Gen Z is that awkward generation that was raised by parents who overcompensated because their emotional
Yeah.
needs weren't catered for, so they went in the opposite direction to catering so much that they didn't end up teaching any sort of resiliency or ability to deal with adversity, right? And so
Yes.
oftentimes pendulum swings happen this way, right? You go from one extreme to the other extreme, and then it has to come back to sort of middle ground where you can be accepting and you can be open, but also understand that a part of living in society and living in the world is you're going to have to interact with different people that have different points of view, and learning how to navigate that.
That is true. And you said something that I didn't even realize because you're right. My kids are Gen Alpha. My
Yeah.
sister's Gen Z. And you're right. They struggle a lot more. Like my son is 15, my daughter's 11. They're more outspoken. They're more, okay, I'm not going to accept that. I'll hear my daughter on the phone and her friends are like talking about small little situations. Well, you didn't tell me you're going to her house and I wasn't invited. And they're literally on the phone breaking down the situation and finding ways to solve it. And I'm like, what's going on here? Do you need my help? No, we talked about it. And they're writing long messages. I don't like the way you treat me because you did this and you did that. Well, you said this, so that's why I reacted this way. And I'm like, wow. But I don't see that with the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
We make this joke that the 89 babies and the 90s babies, we failed them. And I'm like, we did not fail them. My brother said, he's like, you guys failed them. I said, how do we fail them? That has nothing to do with us. The parenting. It's almost like the parents stopped parenting. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like. they just allowed them to kind of raise themselves and do whatever they want.
Yeah, or it's like the like I mean like I would say like that's like probably more true of like Gen Xers and like older millennials, right? But I think with Gen Z it's almost like there was like this like extra level of like softness without sort of explanation that was like right, because there's like I don't think that there's a thing as it being too soft, but I think that if you just are so soft and then there's no explanation through things and there's no
Mm-hmm.
you're not creating understanding, that's where things
The
also they're like,
disconnect
okay, well,
happens, right?
I can't stand to be challenged, because you can be challenged without being punished or without being belittled, right?
Exactly. You're right. And now that we talk about that, and you know, being from the beautiful Indian culture, I actually, my coworker, he just got married in England and he's Indian, and I got to see all the pictures and see the whole process. And I was like, this is beautiful. I just, watching it through his eyes educated me more and I understood, but also a lot of his traditions, your traditions, are similar to ours. For example, when a baby's born, you put the red string around their wrist, right? And the red, I'm not too sure what you call it, I don't remember, but he puts the red, like a dot on the baby's forehead for protection.
Yeah.
It's similar to what we do in the Jamaican culture with the red around their wrist to ward off evil energy, evil eyes, things like that. Um, Giving away the daughter to the gonna be husband. It's the same thing that Nigerians or Africans do in a way, but just different ways of doing it. So there's so many
Well,
similarities
I
with.
think that most colonized cultures actually, I mean, okay, some of the similarities are also going to be like through because of human trade, right? Because people
Mhm.
like even either like through slavery, but even if it wasn't through slavery, right? Like who were, I mean, it was a different form of slavery, like colonized people who were transported from areas to areas as workers
Yep.
and doing things like of that nature, right? You had like over time blending of different cultures, but I also think that more like indigenous, like original cultures of colonized people, like they all bear similarities, and it
Hmm.
because and then these were the things that were sort of changed or erased also as a part of colonization.
Yeah, I agree. But it's just interesting because we don't realize how we have similar things and the racism that comes in. It's like we bleed the same blood. Where does this
No,
come?
of
But we know
course,
where it
of
comes
course.
from. But
And the thing is like the racism, I mean, so much of the racism that happens, like it is because of like colonialism, right? Like even Indian people, right? Like they want to be as fair as possible. Like when I was in India, you couldn't buy a moisturizer that wasn't a whitening moisturizer. And it's
wow.
but what that is it's embedded self-hatred, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like being taught for generations that white people are better and they're superior. So if you are closer to them,
Hmm.
you're going to be better off as well, right? And it's it's this internalized like hatred, or it's the same thing as women. You can have this internalized misogyny where you can hate other women because you've internalized these messages and you're not even aware of them, that you're living because of the patriarchy as well, right? And I
Right.
always feel terrible for people when they're coming at it from that perspective, because I'm thinking like even if you're being judgmental of me or you're being judgmental of someone else, like the amount of internal hatred you're carrying around actually outweighs everything else for you to feel that way.
Right. I agree. And it's terrible, but you know what? They have you and me, and we're breaking these generational cycles because they can't continue into the next generation, especially for the, I don't know what they're gonna call them, what they're called, but after what did you call my children? Gen
They're
Alpha.
Gen Alpha,
I didn't even know, because
yeah.
now I'm gonna get off here and be like, "You're Gen Alpha. You're a Gen Alpha." My son's gonna be like, "What? What's a Gen Alpha?" So
Oh, I'm sure
that's
they know. I'm sure that they're aware.
that one's new to me. I think I stopped at Gen Z and that was it. So thanks for educating me on that one. Can you tell us a little bit more about your childhood being raised in an Indian home in Brampton? What was that like? What was your family dynamic? Did you have siblings? Mom and dad were both at home?
So I grew up as an only child, and I mean, I guess the more interesting thing about my childhood is um, less, I guess, like about the Indian part specifically. Although, like, this plays a part in it, right? Because I grew up with a mother that was emotionally and physically abusive towards me, and I say it plays a part a little bit because in Indian culture, it's also not something that you talk about if you were being abused at home. Like, it would be um, a shame that you would carry with you as a child. And I would assume that actually all children who are abused carry this as well, but it's also just culturally ingrained that you don't talk about your parents or people. And even as an adult, breaking free from the relationship with my mother, because I don't have one with her anymore, and if I did, she would still be abusive towards me, right? Yeah, I'll get a lot of cultural pushback from people, and they'll say, but that's your mother. And I mean, the one thing I always say to people, and if someone else is in a position where they're really struggling leaving an abusive dynamic with somebody, is if that was someone's partner, if that was my boyfriend, and I said he's beating me on a regular basis, and he's insulting me and uh, tearing me down every single day, would you tell me, oh no, you have to stay there and you have to work it out, you should be in that situation?
Right.
And everyone's going to say no, we would tell you to leave, and you're crazy to stay and keep yourself in that situation. So just because I share DNA with somebody is not a reason for me to stay in that situation. And you can't heal from something that is actively ongoing. You can heal from something that is in the past. So if I allowed that abuse to continue, I would still have that open, gaping wound. And likely I would be damaging to other people in my life as a result of that, because I didn't want to take responsibility and end that. Part of breaking generational trauma, generational cycles, is also deciding that you're the one that's going to take responsibility and end it. Because, once that ended, I was able to walk away. I mean, it took time, but I was able to walk away and be able to heal from that. But if it was ongoing, I would not be able to.
I'm glad that you said that because a lot of us go through that where we tolerate certain things in the name of family, whether it be our moms, our fathers, our siblings, aunts, uncles. We stay attached to things that are traumatizing and critical to our healing because it's family, especially a mother. And I can relate to that very much so because I think I struggled for so long and I've had friends who I realize you're not good for me if you're going to gaslight me. So if you know that I don't have a relationship with my mom anymore, in the way that maybe you have a relationship with your mom, don't say to me, like, I'll be like, oh, give your mom a call back. For example, yeah, right, Janelle. You don't even talk to your mom. You're gaslighting me, right? Because you know the situation. Now you're going to throw it in my face. And then you tell me, go ahead and speak to her. That's your mom. Family's very important. You're right. Family's very important, but also I'm more important, right? The way that I grow, the way that I heal, the way that I'm raising my family now is more important than me staying attached to somebody who's causing me so much pain and trauma, because that's just going to be transferred onto my own family. So I believe that a lot of people, even listeners right now, are struggling with that. So for you having the strength and knowing that it was important for you to break that generational cycle, what did it take for you to distance yourself from your mom and put up those boundaries, regardless of that's my mom, that's somebody that I love?
I had to make my own healing a priority, right? I knew that this cycle couldn't continue, that I had been in. And I had just reached a breaking point where, I thought, okay, maybe like as I get older, like things would change, our dynamic will change. But it didn't change, and it wasn't going to change. And either I had to, I was like, okay, I could keep going to therapy and I could keep talking about the same thing over and over again every single time, right? And we know people like that. We know people who've been in therapy for 30 years and they talk about the same thing every single day because they don't want to let go of that person. And the thing is, this is a very individual decision. So if you're not ready to do that, then you're not ready to do that. But what is it costing you, right? And what it was costing me was too much life force. And I realized that I wanted to be happy, and I didn't want to be sitting at the end of my life telling this sob story about how my entire life was horrible, and I was just done being the victim. I guess that's what it comes down to, right? Because I was in this victim identity for so long. And if I kept putting myself in the position to be victimized by somebody, then I was going to continue to tell the story of being a victim. And that didn't align with any of my goals. And that was even before I ever found my purpose as a coach or knew that I was going to do that. But just to be a positive person in life and have a happy life, right? And that I was willing to be alone, right? I was willing to be alone on holidays if I needed to. I was willing to to do that because I'm like, okay, I can handle being alone because I'm willing to do the work on myself and through my own growth, that I can deal with that aspect of it, and also know that that alone won't be forever, but I'm not willing to be miserable anymore.
Right. And being a child going through that abuse, verbally, physically, and emotionally, what was that like for you growing up? How did it affect your relationships with other children, people?
So it absolutely eroded my self-esteem. So I grew up with like zero self-worth. I would say like not even zero, like it was negative 100. I thought I was worthless. So even every friendship, every relationship that I approached throughout my entire life was about me having to earn that and coming from a place of trying to earn that with people. Now, did I have genuine friends that I made along the way? Yes. But did I also have a lot of like terrible people that used me and took advantage of me? Yes. And I had way, way more of those. And I had just a few handful of genuine people. And it was because I kept coming from this place of having to earn affection, to be worthy of being around somebody, right? And then when I did start dating and into adulthood and having relationships, this led me on a path of very toxic relationships because all I wanted to be was chosen and loved, and that was the main priority, so I could prove my mother wrong, right? Because one of the things my mother always used to say to me is, nobody's going to want you, nobody's ever going to love you, no one's ever going to choose you, right? And so I needed to prove her wrong, which meant that I ended up getting married when I was very young. And when I got married, I was like, okay, I've proven my mother wrong, someone has chosen me, and now I'm loved, and now I'm going to be happy. But when you choose a relationship from that place, it is not going to be a healthy relationship. And that marriage ended within 2 years because he had a child with somebody else while we were still married. And instead of my self-worth being elevated, now it had just, they had been
Diminished.
negative 100 before, now it was negative 200 because he proved my mother right, and it proved that same story to be true because I was still seeking this, which led me on a path of even more toxic relationships after that because I was still in this place of I need someone to choose me. I need someone to love me, which led me into two abusive relationships, one after the other. So I managed to walk out of one and I walked right into the other one. And when I walked out of the second one, I realized that it was an incredible grace of the universe that I was able to leave that relationship, because leaving an abusive relationship, a lot of people who have never been in one don't understand that that's actually the most dangerous time, is when you're leaving, because an abuser doesn't want you to leave, and that's when it is very, very dangerous. And so through the grace of the universe, I was able to leave. But I was in that moment, even though I was completely broken, I was able to recognize how lucky I was to be able to leave with my life intact, right? And that I couldn't put myself in that situation ever again. So that was my absolute breaking point. And I was like, okay, I don't care what has to happen if I have to be alone forever, but I can't ever allow this to happen again, ever.
Everything you just said, like, it's so interesting how sometimes when you go through things in life and you replay it back in your head. And as I'm listening to you speak, I'm happy that you knew who you were and that you found love for yourself. That self love is like no other. That self-love is unmatched. That self-love, when you discover it, no one can take it away from you. And you will not
And
sacrifice it
even,
for
and the thing that
anybody.
I want to point out is like, even when you don't think you have it, you actually do. Okay. And so
Mhm.
this is like how I was able to choose myself, because people always ask this. Because when I walked away, I was broken and I thought I was worthless, but but there was a part of me that didn't, because there is always a part of you that is your higher self, that is connected to God, that is connected to the universe, that just knows, that just knows, right? So, and that part of you is when things are happening. So even if you're listening to this and you're in the lowest of lows in whatever situation you're in, how you know that that part of you already exists is because there you will have flashes and moments where there is that voice inside of you saying, this is not okay. It is not, this is not okay. It's not okay that I'm being treated like this. It's not okay that I'm being spoken to like this. It's not okay that this is happening. There is that little tiny glimmer inside of you, and it might be very, very soft. It might be very, very faint because you've ignored it for so long. And that was my case. I'd ignored it for so long, but slowly I started to just listen to it just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit, until it started screaming at me that
Mhm.
this wasn't okay and this wasn't the way that it was supposed to be. And that was not at a point when I felt that love for myself, but it was there. That was the part of me that guided me towards the healing that I needed to do, because it was always inside of me, because it was the part that always knew that whatever was happening was not okay. And when you're in the lowest of the lows and you're like, because how I feel about myself now, I didn't even think that this wasn't even fathomable to me at that point in my life, right? Because I had so much self-hatred and I felt so worthless, right? Where now my regular state is I always say affirming things to myself at all times, like throughout the day. So it's just because I've just reprogrammed the way my entire mind works, right? So even if I like this morning I was making coffee and I spilled some of the coffee, right? And so sometimes affirming yourself is just me having a conversation in my head being like, oh, it's okay that you spilled the coffee, and speaking to myself gently in that way, right? And just affirming to myself like, hey, it's okay that this happened, and this, it's not a big deal, and speaking to myself in that way. Whereas, in the past, the way that I would have spoken to myself is, see, look how terrible you are, you're worthless. It would have been feeding that dialogue, and instead that's not what I do. Where if I pass by a mirror, I always, now my default is that there is some part of myself that I do love, that I connect to. So even if I wake up in the morning, right, and I have the eye crusties and I look ridiculous, I might be like, wow, my hair is so thick and full, or like, it's automatic. Like I find the thing to pay attention to love, right? And so that part hadn't been established yet, but that little faint voice that knew something else was possible, that was the voice, right, that was there. And it's just, even so, if you're in the lowest of the lows, and I'm telling you all this stuff and you're like, I can't even fathom being able to speak to myself that way, it's okay. Just start feeding that little tiny voice that you have inside of you that's already there, that's telling you this is not okay, this is not how it's supposed to be. And let that voice be your guide towards your healing.
I agree. I love that you said that. Walk towards that little voice. That little voice will be your little guide. Because you're right, we all have that little voice that tells us, this is not for me. This is not right. This is not how I should be treated. Keep walking through that little voice. And you said something before, when you're about to leave an abuser, that is the most crucial time. And I spoke about this on another episode with another guest. It's a time where you follow that voice, let it guide you, but also be intuitive and be smart.
Yes, and the thing is, like, if you've been in a long-term situation, or you're in a situation where you're alone, right, in terms of you don't have any external family or friend support or someone that you can trust, or someone, then there are support hotlines and you want to call those. There are places that you can reach out to, and understand that there's no shame in that. It actually takes so much courage to do that than it is to stay and to hide. And there it's reach out for that support, because even if it's just advice on how to do this in a way that will increase your safety, you should proceed with that knowledge. And it's not something that you should take lightly, because there are going to be people in your life that are just going to be screaming at you, you just need to leave. And it's like, yes, you need to
Right.
leave, but also you may need to do this strategically, because
Yes.
your well-being at the end of the day is the most important thing.
Right. And if you have people around you, although you love them, and if they're screaming at you just to leave and they're not able to understand that you need to do it in a way where you leave safe, well, and alive, then it's okay to pull back and be like, please, I just need some time, and do it calmly. And then you can reconnect with that person. If they didn't understand why you did it, then that's okay. Give them time, but still focus on yourself. Because the
Yeah,
people
and
that
a lot of times
understand,
people don't understand this. Like when I speak
Mhm.
about like violence and abuse, like one of the things that I always like to remind people who are like supporters and allies or have someone in their life who they think is being abused, is to remember that that person every single day is being screamed at and being told that they're worthless, and you screaming at them from the other side is not the thing that is going to help them. You might want to shake them and wake them up, but that is not the thing that is going to help them. What they need is your tenderness, they need your softness. And I understand that you may need to have your own boundaries because you don't want to get swept up in that situation, and it's okay for you to have your own boundaries and to hold back. But it's like when you do show up, to show up with softness and tenderness, because that they need to know that there is a soft place to fall, because
right.
that is what is going to make it easier to leave, not when they're being screamed at on this end and they're being screamed at this end, because that's the thing that will keep people frozen and stuck.
That is very true. And if they're constantly getting screamed at, belittled, and you're doing the same thing, basically telling them that when somebody hears you say, "Don't leave, you need to leave," and you're constantly badgering them, they're not hearing something positive. What they're hearing is, "You're stupid. Why don't you just leave?" They're hearing all the negative, not the positive. Much as you may come off from a negative place, a positive place, it sounds negative to them because that's what they're used to. But I really want to ask, and this is for our listeners because a lot of people ask me all the time, how do you just stop talking to your mom like that? How do you just do that? Don't you answer her calls? Don't you check on her? That doesn't even make any sense. But you setting up those boundaries with your mom and choosing yourself, what went into doing that and what did that look like for you?
So for me, there was no gradual, and like this is different for each person, and it also depends on the type of abuser somebody is and the type of like. With her, it's just I had to block her. I had to block her across the board. She still tried to contact me from other numbers, other things, and through the years that I've blocked her, she still has. But the ways that she's reached out to me, it's never made me question my decision, because it's not that she's reached out to me wanting to repair a relationship. It's because she's reached out to me because she wants money, or she wants something else, or she wants something from me, right? And so yeah, I had to block her, and I had to be okay. Like I just decided that instead of dealing with her wrath, which I had been dealing with, if I was going to deal with judgment then I would rather deal with judgment of other people. But other the judgment of other people wasn't going to hurt me as much as dealing with her abuse, right? That I was just willing to deal with that judgment and sit with it. And of course, for a long time, it hurt me. It did upset me. It wasn't something that I just got over, but I made the decision and I just stuck with the decision. And part of sticking with a decision is knowing that uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable experiences are going to come up for you, and you are going to deal with them because you are going to stick with your decision, right? This is like the biggest thing in choosing yourself. It's that you're willing to deal with whatever uncomfortable situation that arises. Because so often when it comes to relationships and when it comes to love, we want other people to choose us above all else, above all circumstances. We want people that will move mountains for us, that will do all of these things for us and show up for us unconditionally. But we won't do it for ourselves, right? And if
Mhm.
we won't do it for ourselves, it becomes very hard to actually even allow anyone in that will do that, or believe, like you might want it, but believing that it's possible is an entirely other thing. When you do that for yourself, that is when you start to lay the foundation of if I can do it for me, then, maybe I don't believe that everyone is going to do it for me, but I believe that at least someone can do it for me because I can do it for me and I can choose myself in this way, right?
Right.
And then you will start to see evidence of that and start to allow people like that into your life as well.
For a woman, a man who is very family oriented, loves their family to death, all about their mom or father, and they have children, and they're married or in a relationship, and they want to keep their family tight just because they believe in family. They want that for their children, but they're battling. Okay, they're toxic. They're not good for me. They're always using me. They always want something. It's always an argument. It's chaos. And they want to set up boundaries, but they don't know how because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or offend anybody. What advice would you give to that person?
So here's the thing. If you're holding on to a toxic dynamic because you love family, you don't love family. What you're afraid of is the judgment from other people and what society defines as family. For me, you may have to change your definition of family. For me, family are the people that love you unconditionally and show up to celebrate you and to support you. That's what my definition of family is. They're the people that choose to love you and they choose to come for those moments when they celebrate you, and they choose to also be there for your moments of sadness, because you also have people that leech on and they only want to be there when you're struggling. Like, that's not your family either, right? Because that's also, they get something out of being there when you're suffering. If they need to be there also to celebrate you when
Mm-hmm.
things are going well for you, you need both. And sometimes you just have to redefine what that is, because if you're saying, okay, but I'm so close to my mom and I'm doing this for my kids, but if you're miserable every single time you have an interaction, your kids are hearing weird things that are being said to them, whatever, what are you doing for your kids? You're bringing toxicity into another generation. You're not doing anything. What you're worried about is your image and the judgment you're going to get from other people, and you're worried about getting this pat on the back from society saying, oh, you were doing a good job, right? Which means you're not internally sourcing. Once you start internally sourcing, you won't need that anymore, right? Me letting go of the relationship with my mom actually opened up the door for me to have so much maternal energy in my life, right? Because the universe doesn't take away something and leave a void there. You always get it, but you get it in a different way. So I have a lot of maternal energy in my life. I have a lot of women in my life, older women that love to mother me and show up in a motherly way. But I had to let go of that relationship to open up the door to have this healthy maternal energy in my life. And if I had just held on to that, there wouldn't have been space for those other women to come in, and I just would have been denying myself what was open to me and what was possible for me all along.
You have to redefine family, redefine the definition of family. I agree with that because we believe that family is blood. It's not. It's the people who really show you love and support and show up for you, and not materialistically either, but emotionally.
And people have this dichotomy, right? Because they'll say family is blood, but then they'll treat their spouse as their ultimate family. And I mean, okay, I mean, there's people that marry family members, but let's just say that for the majority of people,
We're not laughing
your
at you, so
your
if you're
spouse
doing
is your spouse is not someone that you are related to, right? And you make them your everything, right? But it's also because, like, we value romantic love sometimes above everything else as well. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can have all the family you want. You can be supported in all the ways that you want. You just have to redefine it. And if you can define your spouse as your closest, most important family member, then certainly you can do that with anyone else you choose to in your life as well.
I agree. Despite going through abuse, not just from your mother, but in a relationship, and I would like to say that the things that we say to our children and our loved ones can either make or break them. We need to understand that words are very, very powerful and transformative. Meaning, you could be walking on the street and see somebody, and a female, for example, is having the worst day of her life. And you see her and you say, "Hey, queen, you look gorgeous. I love your hair." You just transformed her whole day and whatever she was feeling low about. Words are powerful. And I really want to emphasize that how we speak to the children, especially the children in our lives, is very vital. You could say something to somebody and they hold on to it for the rest of their life until they wake up and choose to detach themselves from it and heal. So be mindful of your words and the power that it carries. But you were
And it's not
mindful.
just the thing that you're saying to other people. When it comes to
Yeah.
children, right? Here's the thing. There's so many people that are so aware and they're so thoughtful about the things that they say to their children, and then they have this negative self-talk in front of them. But the thing is, your kids are going to want to emulate your behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look in the mirror every single time and you're like, oh, look at these rolls, I need to lose some weight, I'm this, I'm that, then no matter what you're saying to them, they're also internalizing how you're behaving. And they're like, oh, this is how an adult behaves. This is like how I'm supposed to feel about myself. This is the things that I'm supposed to say, right? Which is why
Mm-hmm.
if you transform your relationship with yourself, everything else automatically transforms in your life as well.
I agree. Our actions, our kids, they replicate our actions and how we treat ourselves. You're absolutely right. And we have to be mindful of what we're putting out because what you put out is what you'll receive and they will become if you're not mindful of it. But you are mindful and you're aware of your mother's actions and her words and the things that she transferred onto you. And you pivoted. You pivoted and you became this beautiful spirit that we have right now in front of us. A spirit that is pouring out love, a spirit that's pouring out grace. And you are not just a survivor, but you are a thriver. You also became a two-time best-selling author. Congratulations to you. And you are
Thank
a
you.
coach. You are a coach and you guide people through the raw conversations that shift their lives. I am extremely proud of you for not allowing your mother's words, your ex-partner's words and their actions to keep you as a prisoner because you have so much purpose in you that you keep stripping off every single layer, and I'm enjoying it. And I know that all the people that you've coached and your book has touched their lives. Can you tell us a little bit about your what you do? It's your purpose. I don't even, it's not a job. I don't call it a job. I call it I call it your purpose because you absolutely love it. And when you're doing something that you love, it's different. Like your whole life and how you approach life is different. So can you tell us a little bit about it? Because I know coming from a background, I think a lot of people go through this where they're coming from a certain background where somebody tells them that they can't. You're never going to become this. You're never going to get married. You're never going to have kids. You're never going to succeed. You hold on to those words until you say, oh no, you don't dictate what I'm going to become or how far I'm going to go. What was it like for you stepping into your purpose and your calling as a coach, an author, and a tremendous thriver?
So, I mean, been incredibly powerful. And one of the things that I really believe is that it's not the things that we go through that make us feel alone and that cause our suffering. It's that it's believing that we're the only ones that have gone through that actually creates the suffering in our lives, right? And when I know, when I can share my story and when I can, in my writing and my speaking and in the things that I put out there, that there is someone else and maybe their story isn't exactly the same as mine, it's a little bit different, but there's parts of it that they relate to, that just in sharing my story I have the opportunity to make someone suffer a little bit less, to help them feel a little less isolated, because they know this experience that they're having isn't unique to them, that it's an unpleasant experience, it's a horrible experience, but it's not unique to them. And the fact that I found myself on the other side of it means that they absolutely have the ability to find themselves on the other side of it as well, because it's not because I'm lucky or I'm more special or any of those things. It's just that I did the work to find myself on the other side of it. And I'd love to share, so some of the foundation of the work that I do are these 4 pillars of confidence that I created that I love to have people start with. So all of the work that I do with people, this is where I have them start, because there certain things are great, like affirmations are great, other things are great, but when you're in this place where you have no self-worth, it can be super triggering, right? So you can't stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm beautiful when you feel like garbage, right? Because you're saying that, but your mind is fighting back saying, actually, you're not. Like, actually, this is wrong with you, right? So the affirmation is not creating a positive response. You're not even going to enjoy doing it, so you're not going to want to do it. So this is why I created my 4 pillars of confidence, because no matter where you are, if you start here, this lays the foundation for solid confidence. So my first pillar of confidence is to live your values. And so many people, when I say this, are like, yeah, of course I'm living my values. But are you really? Because where people get stuck is they have values that contradict other values that they have. And so it creates this misalignment within them. And as long as there's a misalignment, you can't feel confident and you can't feel at peace within yourself. Because how I describe true confidence is where you feel fully aligned and at peace within yourself. So it doesn't mean that you are going to feel like this goddess every single day, like you may, but if not, like you're just not going to have this internal war where you're fighting against yourself either, where it's just like, you can have neutrality as well, right? And so it could be amazing or it could be neutral, but there isn't this internal war. And so examples of values that people have that could be misaligned are, let's just say you're really into health and fitness, and that could be one of the things that you value. But then you're also a foodie and you love trying different types of food, right? And so you might work out every day or twice a day or whatever you're doing, and you're doing all these things. And when you do that, that part of you that believes in that value feels really good. But there's another part of you that feels like you're denying yourself, and that, the one that values trying all different types of foods and having different experiences. And when you're eating your boiled chicken every day, is like, it's really resentful, and you're having this internal war. And then when you go and you do this food tour and you have this other experience, you go out and whatever, that part of you feels alive and it's enjoying life. But then there's this other part of you that's like, well, you're not valuing your health and fitness, you're not doing this, and now you're at war again, so you're not at peace in either one of those moments. And so the remedy to that is to do an inventory of your values, right? So you can decide, because you get to decide what's important to you, right? You can decide that you drop one of those, right? That, actually, I don't really care about trying different types of food, and but you have to be honest with yourself. Can you drop this, right? And like, that's not important to me. Or you could redefine this and create an integrative story, right? So and decide that part of your health and wellness journey is the healthiest version of you can eat a variety of different foods, can have a variety of different experiences, and this contributes to your overall health and well-being. That balance is a part of that, and that's a part of balance, right? You rewrite the story so that in those moments you're not beating yourself up anymore, because now you've aligned those values, right? And this also happens with things like, let's just say you value financial success, right? But then you believe that the path to financial success is through extreme hustle. But then you also value fun and freedom. And so every time you're working, there's that part of you that values financial success that feels really good about it. But then that part of you that values fun and freedom is pissed off and really like you're creating this internal battle. And then when you're out having fun or you're relaxing and you're not working, that part of you is super happy, and the other part of you is pissed off because you could be working. You could be making money at that point, and you're just wasting your time, right? And so it creates this internal battle where how are you going to feel peace? How are you going to feel confidence, right? So again, you have to think about this. Okay, well, maybe I don't value fun and freedom. Maybe I just want to hustle all the time, and maybe there's a moment in your life that's going to be the true story for you, right? And that's going to be the thing, and you're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this and I'm going to do this so that I can be in alignment with myself. Or again, you could tell a new story that actually the days that I relax and I go out and do these things make me more productive, right? And it reinvigorates my energy my creativity to be able to make more money, to be able to do more. But you have to find a way to integrate this, and really you have to sit down and do an inventory, because when you start doing this, people realize they have all kinds of conflicting values and all of these parts of themselves are fighting all the time. And I like to start here because no matter what low opinion you have of yourself, you will be able to start here, right? There won't be a lot of pushback in this, in trying to maybe retell some of the stories, yes. But like I said, at any moment in time, you get to decide. And you may decide to let go of some of those values at a period of time. And at another point, you may decide to bring them back and write a new story and whatever it is, right? But you get to decide that for yourself. Now, my second pillar of confidence is to live your passions, because you are not going to be able to be confident in life if you are living a life that is devoid of passion.